get out here in Hamilton and Marion County. We got some people here from Winfield, and we appreciate y'all coming over, and from Ewing. And let's get out and really talk up Congressman Byrne, and we'll let him say a few words, and then if anybody has any questions, he'll be glad to talk to you when he gets finished. So, Congressman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mayor, thank you for letting us use this building. Love this building. Right, y'all done a good job with it. And thank all of you for coming out tonight. I'm not going to give you a big speech, and I do want to save some time for you to ask me questions, but I have my friend Johnny Spann here. Johnny was my guest at the State of the Union address 3 weeks ago. That was quite a week, Johnny.
It sure was.
So it started out that week. The Monday that week was the Monday that the Democrats proved that they could not run a caucus in a relatively small state, and they wanted to run the healthcare system in America. The president gave that great State of the Union address that Johnny and I got to see in person. Then on Wednesday, the Senate acquitted him of the crazy impeachment charges. On Friday morning of that week, they released the jobs numbers from January, which just proved a lot of the things, John, that he said in the State of the Union address were accurate. And that afternoon, they announced that we had taken out the leader of a really bad terrorist group in the Middle East called Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. That's quite a week. That Thursday, the president invited me and about a dozen other members of the House of Representatives to come to the White House for his celebration of the end of the impeachment process. I was literally at the gate at Reagan Airport to get on the flight to Birmingham when we got the call from the White House. So when the White House calls you and says the president wants you at the White House for the celebration of impeachment, you go. And so I went, not really knowing what he was going to do. He literally called each one of us that he had invited there out by name. And here's what he said when he came to me. He said, "Bradley Byrne from Alabama, what a great place." So he was giving you a shout out too.
Yes.
Because he knew you had his back. And he tells me that when I see him in person. He says how much he loves Alabama. People in Alabama love me. You know, he came to the Alabama LSU game. Score didn't work out so well. But the reception he got at Bryant-Denny Stadium, just all those people yelling and hollering, it was really good. So he gave y'all a shout out that day too. And I was really proud for me to get a shout out, but I was really proud for you to get that shout out. So thank you for having the president's back. Now I wish I could tell you that the fight is over. The fight is not over. They continue to do stuff. This fight's going to go on. And the president's got to have people who are willing to be warriors for him. Now remember this, the attack on the president was an attack on you and me. Make no mistake about it. So when I say a warrior for the president, I'm really saying he needs warriors for what you and I believe in. The stuff that we know is so very important about our country. So he does not have a warrior in Doug Jones. He got the opposite. Doug voted to remove him from office. Doug voted yesterday against a bill that would make abortions illegal after 20 weeks.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe life begins at the moment of conception.
Yeah.
20 weeks, there are only 5 countries in the world that allow abortions after 20 weeks. 2 of them are North Korea and China. So how can you vote against that? Doug Jones' maiden speech on the floor of the United States Senate was on gun control. I wanted to pick up my phone and call him and say, "Hey Doug, you represent Alabama. In Alabama, gun control means we use both hands." He votes against the wall. He voted against confirming Judge Kavanaugh, and on and on and on. President Trump, you and I need a senator from Alabama that's a warrior for us, that's a fighter for us, and this fight goes on. So I'm offering myself to you to be your warrior. I did it for President Trump last year. I want to do it for you for 6 years. Now, a couple of things before I get to the questions. Usually when I'm campaigning, I'm with these great staff people that I've got here, and I appreciate Alex so much over there for what he does. This week, I got to have with me my wife of 39 years, Rebecca Byrne. I want to introduce Rebecca to you over there. People always ask me about what my position is on term limits. And I always say I'm for term limits. but I have a term limiter living with me in my house. If I get too big for my britches, she's going to yank me home. I guarantee you she is. So I really appreciate her being able to be with me. This is a great country.
Yes.
It is a great country. You know what Coach Bryant said? If you find yourself in the end zone, act like you belong there. America is in the end zone every day. We're just not acting like it. And for the life of me, I don't understand why we wouldn't act like it, why we wouldn't get up and celebrate, Johnny, all those great things the president said, instead of those Democrats sitting on our hands. We should be joyful about what we've got in this country, because there are people literally dying to get into this country because we have what they want, the freedom and the opportunity and the values to have a high-quality life. And we in Alabama really have it good, because we still are connected to those values that are so very important, which I hope we never lose. So I want to go to Washington on the other side of the Capitol from the House and the Senate, take Doug Jones' place, and represent you. Now, I came through here back in December, and I made a promise to some people here and in Lamar County and some of the other counties around here that I wouldn't just come here one time. And I wouldn't just come here during campaign season. I'm going to come back. As a congressman, I do more town halls than just about any other member of the House of Representatives. Okay? Now, I do it because I like it. It helps me understand better what the people I represent are thinking, but it also gives me an opportunity to communicate with them what I'm doing on their behalf. And people love it. And there's no place for me in my congressional district that's too small for me to go to. I've been to a church out in the middle of the woods and there were 10 people there. And I was happy to be there, and they were grateful for me to do it. Well, I'd be happy to come back, Mayor, to this great recreation center and do a town hall here. And Johnny, you find me a good place in Winfield, we'll do something over there too. And I won't be just like a one-time guy. I will make a real point of it. And that'll give us more opportunities like this to talk. So before I get to the very end here, why don't I stop and see if anybody's got any questions of me about my positions on the issues or anything about me you need to know. Or you could ask Rebecca and get the real truth about it. Any questions? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What about your immigration reform, ICE?
Well, I'm a strong believer that we need a wall on the border to keep people from coming across. I think we need to have more Border Patrol agents down there. They need more equipment.
Amen.
And we need to change the asylum laws as people are gaming the asylum laws. I was in El Paso back in September, and they showed me the part of the border where they had a wall, and they showed me a part of the border where there's not a wall. And I literally watched two people run across the border where there wasn't a wall. I had the local head of Customs and Border Patrol there with me. I said, "You going to get them?" He said, "Yeah, we'll get them." I said, "Well, what happens then?" He said, "Well, they'll ask for asylum. We'll give them a court hearing day, and they won't show up for the court hearing, because 80% of them don't show up."
Yep.
But we've turned them loose, okay?
Yes.
So what happens is, so we had a woman that was killed in a head-on collision in Mobile last April. The man driving the car that killed her, 19-year-old from Guatemala, came here illegally, requested asylum. They gave him his date, didn't show up. Next time law enforcement saw him was after he killed this woman. So we have got to make sure we do a better job.
What about the ones that's here now? We're not getting them.
We need to deport
I mean,
everyone.
round them up.
We need
you
to
know?
deport. We need to deport everyone. Now, a lot of them, they show up in the system. Okay, they show up for crime, or they got some other legal issue going on. They show up at a health, a hospital or something. Once we found them, you deport every one of them. I am not for amnesty. I do not believe that if they come here illegally, we should give them a job or citizenship, period. No. Because all that three things here. Number one, that's an incentive for other people to do it.
Yeah.
Number two, we are a nation of laws, and that makes a mockery of our laws. But number three, it is totally unfair to the people who come here legally, gone through the long and arduous process to be a fellow citizen of ours, for us to slap these other people on the wrist after they had to do what they did. I honor people that come to this country and go through the legal process to be a citizen. But I do not honor those people that come here illegally, period.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm 69, I'm retired, I'm on Social Security, and we've heard all this talk about Social Security going to run out of money. Okay, I've got 2 suggestions. I've sent them to Senator Shelby, and all I ever get is just a standard formula. But right now, most people know that you only have to work 10 years or 40 quarters to draw a Social Security check. How many knew that?
I didn't know that.
Okay, you need to study the Social Security law. We need to change the law to where you got to work 80 quarters or 20 years. Because if you come here legally from Guatemala and you're a landscaper or mowing yard,
Yeah.
you at age 50 you can start drawing at 62 at $400 a month, which is mucho pesos. So that's Kevin McCarthy. There's a bill going to be introduced in California. He wants to allow all the Catholic priests and pastors in California now who waived the right to be in Social Security back in the 70s, 80s. He wants to allow them back in. I don't know if you read it or not.
No, I haven't.
That's from Kevin McCarthy, our House leader. So I'm just saying to you, we can fix Social Security if we make you work 20 years, not 10 years, for everybody that's under 50 years of age right now.
Gotcha.
All right, number 2, we only pay Social Security tax on the first $138,500 a year in taxable wages. We need to raise that to $250,000, index it for inflation, so the people that earn more pay the same amount, but they pay it on a large. Those 2 things right there, Bradley, would fix Social Security, I'm serious now, for 50 years. Those 2 changes. How many think that's fair to make the people make $138,000 pay? Now I'm talking about wages, not talking about capital gains income or interest income, wages.
Yeah. Those are good, really good ideas. I haven't heard either one of them.
But you didn't know you had to work, only work 10 years?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
So that's important. I completely agree with that. We need to make people
That has
work
been that
longer.
way since Jimmy Carter was president, and of course Ronald Reagan, they got it fixed back in '86. But we need to do that to save Social Security.
Well, let me just tell you, having been in Congress, they're not going to cut people's Social Security benefits. No. But if we don't have some sort of a fix, we're just going to add to the deficit, which is too big to begin with. So we need ideas like that to be able to work on to make sure we.
I've got a ton of them. If you want
I like those 2.
Let me, I'm serious.
I like those 2.
You got to work smarter, not harder.
Now, I do have a bill. Let me make sure I tell you about this. I'm real worried about the deficit. We're going to add $1 trillion to the national debt this year. Here's the problem. 70% of all federal outlays go out in what's called mandatory spending, which means Congress doesn't appropriate it. It just goes out automatically. Now, I got no problem with that in Social Security and Medicare because people pay into it.
Non-discretionary.
Now, I'm talking about mandatory spending that's not Social Security and not Medicare.
Wow.
$1.2 trillion.
Wow.
That goes out without us touching it. I don't agree with that. So I've got a bill that takes those programs, not Social Security, not Medicare, but the rest of the mandatory programs, and makes it where Congress has to vote on. We don't have to cut it. We just have to restrain the growth in it.
That would balance the budget, right?
That would balance the budget. That one thing. Now, I'm going to tell you where the bugaboo is there. That's Medicaid, health care for poor people. That's welfare, that's food stamps, that's governmental housing systems. That's the needs-based entitlement programs. And a couple other hundred smaller things. And the moment you say that, you say, oh, you're a terrible person, you're trying to hurt all these poor people. No, I'm not. I'm trying to, A, get our budget under control. And why in the world, when you have this economy like we've got right now that's so good, why do we have so much money going out into those programs? People should be working.
The Supreme Court ruled that you can't, Trump to make you have work requirement in order to get this aid. That was upheld. You knew that.
I want work requirements, but I want more than that. I want us to make sure that everybody that's drawing anything out of those programs is somebody who truly is a person in need. If you're a person in need, I don't mind.
Means testing.
We need to go out there and make sure that only people who are truly in need and cannot work.
All right, here's the slogan. People do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah. Yes, sir, Mayor.
We can't balance the budget today at this meeting, but there's something that is at hand today that's on everybody's mind, and that's the new threat of a pandemic. Would you give us your take on this, please?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I have been briefed on it by all the governmental officials that are involved in it. And I got to say, up until this point, and I'm not trying to play a game by saying up to this point, up until this point, I think the federal government's done a good job. We don't have many cases. Most of the cases we have came off of that ship, the cruise ship. And so I think we've done a good job up until this point to contain it. Here's the problem. it's extremely contagious, okay? It spreads real quickly. You see it's happening in Italy right now. And the more countries it goes to, the greater the likelihood is that somebody, some American, maybe not an American, is going to come from one of those countries, fly over here, and that person, not even knowing that they're infectious, is going to start it to spread here. So we were told by the Centers for Disease Control yesterday or the day before that it's a question of when, not if, that it starts spreading more in the United States. Do not panic, okay? You're far more likely to get and to die from the flu than you are this disease. This disease has only a 2% mortality rate, and it's mainly people who already have compromised systems from lung disease or whatever. But it is serious. I think the government is asking us, the president wants another $2.5 billion, and some people think we need to raise it a little bit, to give them the resources they need to continue to do that job, and we're going to give it to them, don't worry. And I think we have the people with the know-how to do what needs to be done. We got to this point because it started in China. China is not a transparent nation. They tried to step on the story early on, and that allowed it to spread, and they didn't get good control over it. Once it gets to the point it is now, it's going to spread some more. You're going to hear more cases in more countries, and there are going to be more cases here. But we have to keep everything in perspective. We have a very strong and robust public health system. We will make sure that our hospitals and healthcare providers have what they need to respond to it. But there's some things that everybody in this room can do to help. One is to wash your hands regularly. Be careful about touching your hands to your face. I'm bad about that, by the way. I'm talking to myself. If you have symptoms that you're concerned may be that, go see your healthcare provider immediately. If you know other people that do, get them to see their healthcare provider. The longer somebody who's infectious is out there, the more people they're going to infect. So if we all play a role here and we give the resources to the federal government, I think we're going to be okay. We've already lost 15,000 people this year to the flu. People don't understand that. We lose a lot of people to the flu every year. So we know how to handle these diseases. The problem with this one is that it's new. We do not have a vaccine for it. We won't have a vaccine for at least a year. They're experimenting with some treatments. 80% of the people that get this disease have only mild symptoms. They don't need really any treatment. It's like having a cold, like I got a little cold right now. But there are people that get a more serious version of it, and that's where our hospitals are going to have to come into play. So I'm not panicked. I'm concerned, but not overly worried. I think that's the best way to say it. Yes, sir?
Question. What's your thoughts on prison reform?
Well, I like certain of the ideas on it, but in one of the few times that I disagreed with the president, the bill we passed out of the federal government, out of the federal Congress, I didn't agree with. I think it went too far. A lot of the people we have in federal penitentiaries are involved in the drug trade. And some of those people are the higher-ups. They're the ones that are reaping millions of dollars out of this and basically running a very high-powered enterprise that brings them a lot of money but spreads a lot of misery to people. I don't want to do anything that lets those people out of jail. I think they need to stay there. Because the moment we let them out, they're going to go back and do what they did. Yep. They make too much money at it. In general, though, I think that there's some good ideas in the prison reform, and there was a lot of good ideas in the bill we passed out of the Congress. I just think it went too far. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
Nancy Pelosi seems to like the term, no one is above the law, but when a city or a county or a state creates these safe havens for everybody, isn't that going above the law?
Well, I got some good news for you.
Sanctuary cities.
The court ruled today that President Trump can deny federal funds to sanctuary cities. They ruled that today. So the president is being aggressive about that. I appreciate him being aggressive about that. Yeah. His attorney general is being aggressive about that. I appreciate that. The people that he's got from ICE, et cetera, are going to be increasing their numbers in some of these places like New York. So I think you're about to see something happen on that. I don't know why we would send federal law enforcement grants to states and cities that refuse to enforce the law. That doesn't make any sense. So the president's now got a free hand to do what he needs to do there, and I'm glad he's doing it. Any other questions? Well, Let me close by saying this. I told you earlier that this is a great country. Let me tell you one of the ways I know how great it is. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. And in that capacity, I got to travel all over the world to see our men and women in uniform. In jungles, deserts, on the high seas. And every time I meet them, they make me proud. I mean, they'll pull out the Alabama soldiers, wherever we are, and I get to meet them, and they are fine people. They really make me proud. I was on the deck of an aircraft carrier at sea during flight operations a couple of years ago, and I'd never seen flight operations on an aircraft carrier. And I was mesmerized, because the aircraft carrier deck is really not that big when you're out there at sea. And they're shooting those jets off the bow and recovering them on the stern, and people are running around. There's jet fuel and all this ordnance. And they have to do it perfectly, because if you make a mistake on the deck of an aircraft carrier, people die. Very expensive pieces of equipment get lost. And we can't afford that. So I was sitting there watching this, and I had the commanding officers and the admiral standing next to me. And you have to yell at one another because it's so loud. I said, how in the world do they know what they're doing, because they can't talk to one another? And he yelled back that we trained them, would you like to meet some? I said, yes, sir. So we went inside so we weren't yelling at one another. And he brought 4 of those sailors in. And when they're on the deck of the aircraft carrier, they got on their helmets and their goggles and their tunics with different colors. And so you have no idea what kind of human beings underneath that. He brought those 4 sailors in there, and they took off their helmets. I said, oh my God, they're babies. The average age of a sailor on the deck of one of our aircraft carriers is 21. Rebecca and I had a 21-year-old son at home at the time. I wouldn't have let him anywhere near jet aircraft. But these young people, our soldiers, our sailors, our Marines, our airmen, they're all like that. They're that quality. They're the quality of Johnny's son, who gave his life for our country. The first casualty of the war on terror was Johnny's son, Michael. It's that kind of person. That's what makes us great. It's not the aircraft carrier. It's not the jets. It's them. And they are the best of us. And we have a solemn responsibility to them and what they've stood for to make sure we live up to what Coach Byrne said we should do. I often think about what my daddy, who grew up during the Depression and fought all 4 years in World War II in the Pacific, would say to his congressman's son. And I know what he would say. Quit whining. Buck up. You didn't have to live through the Great Depression. You didn't have to fight a world war in 4 continents that you weren't prepared for. You didn't have to come back and create this incredible economy. We gave it to you. And all you have to do is to continue to give it to the generation after that and the generation after that. That's what we're supposed to do. So if we will do that and stand up with President Trump on this stuff, we're going to be just fine. We're going to do even better than what the president was talking about, John. That's right. And this country will be better than fine. So I appreciate you coming out tonight. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support. Please tell all your friends. Get on your email chains, get on your phone lines, get everybody out to vote. If you do, I promise you, I'm going to make you proud. You'll see me on television. You'll be fine. Thank you. God bless you.
Congressman, we appreciate you coming out today. We hope that you'll come back for a celebration after the election.
Okay, all right.
And again, thank the mayor for allowing us to come over here to this beautiful facility. And do what the congressman said. You know, call your friends, call your neighbors. Make sure everybody gets out and votes next Tuesday. I mean, it's a bonus. Congressman's out here working hard. He's traveling all over the state, calling on people. So let's do our part. Let's call our friends. Let's call our family. Let's encourage them. Not encourage them. Let's make sure they go vote next Tuesday and make sure they vote for Congressman or Senator Bradley Byrne.
There we go.
You ever seen a $20 bill?
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/49 County News TV.